good morning, Patriots. It's good to see you all. Well, I can't really see you, but you can see me, which is, just as good, right? I think so. Anyway, it's going to be an exciting morning, another great show. We've got some great guests, some guests we've had on a lot who told you what was coming and what to expect, and they were right. So it's always good to have good news from good folks, and we'll be doing that today. So without further ado, the guy who runs the show, and I pretend that I know what I'm doing, Chris Cordani. Chris, come on in.
Yes, I'm the Bernie, or I'm the Bernie to your Imus today.
So yeah, you almost got me excited. You said Selena Gomez was coming on. It's like, what? How did he get her? It's like she's off crying somewhere in the corner. It's like, how did he get out of the corner? It's like, wow.
She was crying. Well, then we had to remind you, this is Wake Up Patriots, not Wake Up Commies.
That's right. That's right. Well, crying commies too. She's crying. So, isn't there like a song about that? David Lee Roth. Crying. I could say that's David Lee Roth did a song about her crying. So anyway,
no, I always thought it was Jamie's crying. There we go.
Jamie.
No, that was another. That was another one, right?
Yeah, they're all crying. So, but someone's not crying is our friend Karyn Turk. Good morning, Karyn.
I don't know.
Hey.
Good morning. Who's crying now, Tony? Who's crying now?
Well,
it's another song.
Journey is crying now. That's right. Who's crying now?
There's also
a lot of people
crying. That's the good news. America's happy
my
again.
Friend,
we have restored happiness.
My friend Acosta, Jim Acosta, he got fired.
He's out. That's right.
Poor Jimmy. I rode a train to going nowhere. Speaking of Journey, with Jim Acosta in the seat behind me, coming down from New York one time to DC. But that's another story for another day. So we'll talk about that sometime. But by the way, Chris, you can reach out to Jim. Maybe he'll come on. I doubt it.
Well, I believe he's going to be hosting Sábado Gigante after this.
Is he going to put those cool fighting masks on like they have in Mexico and do the fighting thing? That'd be kind of cool.
Well, they might do that. I used to love Don Francisco. I mean, I didn't understand a word the guy was saying, but he was just a really cool presence doing it. It's Sábado Gigante, and they had that weird guy. I always wanted to be the weird guy with that mask and the trumpet. Like just blow the trumpet every once in a while. Didn't have to say anything, just blow the trumpet. And then they go, oh, here we go, Lavante, Sábado Gigante again, Don Francisco, and introducing cool actors. That guy had such a great voice. So Jim Acosta is going to probably try out to take over for that show.
I wish I was in Tijuana eating barbecued iguana. Just saying.
Hey, Stan Ridgway told me it tasted like chicken in an interview. I had to ask him.
We should have him on. That would be a fun interview. Anyway, we're all teasing here.
I have to tell you, when you start talking about the trumpet again, Chris and Tony, you missed right before you came on with the two of us. We were sitting there backstage talking, and I found out that Chris sometimes plays in an oompa band, and I thought
this was a while ago.
Fascinating fact. So cool.
Now, I used to sit in when I was younger. I used to fill in for an oompa band playing the baritone or the tuba because
very cool.
They're just awesome bands.
That's kind of cool.
And, I had to play the bass line.
Go ahead. One of the comedy troops that made the most of Oopa bands was Second City TV, who we talked about yesterday with Count Floyd. Remember those guys? They were great. And they had John Candy and others were in the Oompa band. Yeah.
I also like them in Five Neat Guys.
Oh yeah, they were good too. They were good too.
Five Neat Guys.
But Oompa, and isn't that something from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Oompa Loompa Doopity Doo.
Well,
I've got a little message for you or something to that effect. What does it say? I've got a little something for you. The chat will know. The chat is talking about the fact that Caroline Levitt is going to be giving the first press conference today. And, she used to come on the old show on that former network I won't talk about all the time. And I absolutely adore her. I am excited that she's press secretary. I don't know.
Yeah, she's going to be good.
All right.
Well, we're going to talk about stuff today.
Wait a minute. Yeah, see, I have to ask you this question, Tony. Is when you talk about the Oompa Loompas, does this man look familiar to you?
Yeah, that's the guy that is actually number one, I think, on the prisoner.
He is. That's right. He is the butler, who I thought was
That's
number
right.
one for a while too. But Angelo Muscat played one of the Oompa Loompas on the original, the Gene Wilder, the good version, of course,
See,
of Willy
I
Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
yeah, I think was that before or after the prisoner? Because he would have been it would have been great to have the crossover and Oompa Loompa in the village. I think that'd been kind of cool. So.
I believe it was after, and maybe he was also in control of that place too, if you think about it.
Yeah, it could be. So it's too bad he's not in control of the Democrat Party because at least they have somebody who knows what they're doing.
Oh, there's a lot of number
Ah,
twos in that party, but that's sort of a different
Oh
kind
yeah,
of number two.
yeah. So well, we'll be talking about some of their number twos today. But without further ado, Karen, could you do the audience favorite, who they we always count on
I
you doing, is
can.
Jesus Calling.
Absolutely. And I just want to give a shout out to Beach Cat Blues in the chat who got it. It's Oompa Loompa Doopity Doo. I have another puzzle for you. So without further ado, we'll do some Jesus calling and bring some light into the morning. And today is really good, guys. Today is I am with you always. These were the last words that I spoke before ascending into heaven. I continue to proclaim this promise to all who will listen. People respond to my continual presence in various ways. Most Christians accept this teaching as truth, but ignore it in their daily living. Some ill-taught or wounded believers fear and may even resent my awareness of all they do and think. A few people center their lives around this glorious promise, and they find themselves beyond blessed, beyond all expectations. When my presence is a focal point of your consciousness, all the pieces of your life fall into place. As you gaze at me through the eyes of your heart, you can see the world around you from my perspective. The fact that I am with you makes every moment of your life meaningful. So beautiful way to start the day, guys. That was really, today's a good one. I'm
Absolutely.
feeling really good about this week. This week, I haven't
Amen.
stopped smiling. A lot of people are talking about in the chat, like, just that, like, you feel like peace has been restored in some way. And, I've been watching these hostages, how beautiful it is. And I just want to read something real quick to both of you, because I looked up
please.
today, what little prayer could we say for the return of the rest of these hostages? And Psalm 91:15 is, they shall call upon me and I will answer them. I will be with them in distress. I will rescue them and honor them. So I just think that's a little reminder and something I'm going to say to myself today, very consciously. We got to bring the rest of these hostages home, but it is beautiful that there is some return of peace in the Middle East.
Excellent. Well, I think that's going to happen. And let me go through this a little bit real quick to do a summary. Pete Hegseth showed up at the Pentagon like Trump. He did an impromptu interview on the steps of the river entrance, and he's very clear about, hey, we're back in business. DOD, we're going to be doing some things. Marco Rubio's over at State Department, kind of doing. I don't think he's going to purge the snowflakes over there, but I think he's going to get a core team together to start doing things with what President Trump wants. And then obviously the White House, I think, they suspended all the aid and all these other grants. It's like, yeah, let's stop funding Soros, because I don't know if the audience knows this. Karen, I think you do. And I know Chris does, because we talk about this with Jerry all the time. And Jerry's coming on later, right? Here in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Chris?
Jerry is coming on.
So they basically, Soros throws out money to fund nonprofits. And some of these are local, some of these are overseas. And once they get going, they get credibility. They become essentially some academic or some other organization that does good, and doing good is the cover. They start putting in for government grants and all that. So then we start funding all the nonsense. And Trump knows this. So I don't know who's advising him on this. I think I have an idea. But Trump said, "Oh yeah, we're going to stop all this. This is just hurting us. We're using our money to undermine our values and our system." So this is all going within the first week. And Tom's out there in New York doing, upsetting Selena Gomez in her $5 million mansion. Chris, would you cry from a $5 million mansion if you had one? I don't know. I'm just asking.
You know what? I might not do that. I also would not sit there during a pandemic in my $5 million, $18 million mansion telling you with an indoor pool in the background saying, "Oh, we're all in this together," to people in a one-room apartment. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
It makes no
that's another thing I
sense.
wouldn't
You
do.
know, I would like to say that, I mean, she doesn't seem to be the most mature individual. And I have to think that, you know, growing up the way that she did, and she was sort of like a Disney superstar, right? So child actress. She
Yes.
probably is mentally about 11. And on top of that, she's probably still very hormonal in her 20s or 30s. And she had a full female meltdown. I mean, this is why women get pinned as crazy when they video themselves doing stuff like this. And I would like to defend all women by saying that this is not a representation of your daughters or my daughters. This is absolutely unhinged. And this girl has lived in a little sheltered bubble. She's not representative of American women. She's, you know, a celebrity Disney superstar. You know, George Soros and her are right in line. You know, you bring up George Soros and all these things that he funds and how we're not going to fund them anymore. You know, he's got all these other billionaires on their side. And what I think is really entertaining about it is watching those billionaires now come to our side only because Donald Trump's in charge. They have to play ball, Tony. What an amazing thing that is to see.
Well, here she is. Here she is. If you haven't seen this yet,
I just want to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked.
whoa,
Children. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know.
you could give him a sandwich or something.
Well, it's like a thirst trap. There's a term for this. I'm actually trying to Google it. Maybe the chat knows, but people do these things it's called sad fishing, like catfishing.
Yes, yes.
This is called sad fishing. When you post a video like this, you're doing it for attention. You're doing it
for
because
likes.
they live in this little social media bubble.
Yep, for likes, and they make money off of this stuff too. So here's more.
What to do? I'll try everything. I promise.
Okay, well, what about those kids that were missing? The migrant children who were
We got
missing
some
over
of
those
them
years
back.
you were a
Tom
child spot.
Homan.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the first thing here, this goes back to the premise we've talked about repeatedly. The left deals only in emotion. It's all about manipulation. It's all about histrionics. It's all about being, can I use the word dramatic? What was that, John Lovett? We should have to, I'm acting. I'm only acting.
A master thespian. Genius.
Master thespian. Genius. That's what they do. It's all acting. And this is another example of bad acting, right? I don't think she's going to get an Academy Award for this.
Fascinating, actually. Guys, there's a rabbit hole to unpack here. I'm serious about this. This whole Selena Gomez thing, like, this is trending on the liberal side. I'm doing a quick little search, and I'm looking up. CNN had an article on the 11th of January about why people post themselves crying online. And for younger generations, saying that this is normality for them. Like, everybody does this. Like, this is Gen Z, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true. And they do enjoy the attention and the accolades from it.
Wow.
They seem to like the idea that people want to pat them on the back and just say, "Hey, you're not alone." It's that kind of attention. It's when we were kids, we would call that girl in our high school class the drama queen, the one who was always sad about something, who always wanted to make sure who always wanted people to come to her and say, "Don't worry, it's okay," and put their arm around her, no matter what. And mainly it's because she couldn't. She missed a television show, or one of her shoes got a little smudge on it, or something like that she could easily wipe off. This is just that drama queen who now realizes she can make money, or at least get nationwide and worldwide attention over this. It's a sad drug, attention.
I don't know. I feel like my parents would have thrown me into a mental hospital if I filmed myself crying at her age. Like, honestly, in my 20s or whatever, like, that was not accepted. You made a really good point, Chris. Like, our generation, like, we didn't do that. Like, we actually understood it. Maybe it was Ronald Reagan. Maybe we could go and look at our generation and how we were impacted by the Republicans. Like, we were strong.
It was our parents. It was our parents and teachers. Shut up, sit down.
Karen, there you go again. I don't know. It's those damn Democrats.
Democrats.
Where's Cap Weinberger when you need him? So.
Teachers Teachers used to be able to say, "Shut up, sit down" back in the day. Our
Well,
parents would be
yeah,
like,
I know.
their parents would be like,
But-
"Stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry
but-
about."
Right.
But will this have any impact on stopping Donald Trump? No, it won't.
No.
This is all
No.
just them being bad losers. So it is what it is. But let's move on to other more cheery stories. I think we mentioned Jim Acosta getting fired, didn't we? Can I mention it every 5
we did.
minutes?
Speaking of
Yes.
CNN, there we go.
Speaking of CNN, how about other networks?
Oh yeah, here we go.
Come on, we had to put this up. We're going to talk about immigration.
Frankly,
It faced the nation, and I have to tell you,
Okay.
Margaret Brennan has been taking a lot of hits over the last 6-7 months because she is, in fact, an idiot. And
by the way, there's some folks out there who broke down, basically done screen captures of her face. It's like she's like, it's like amazing to see her like transformation from semi-competent reporter to hyena. It's all done in real time, by the way, during the interview. So, speaking of someone who's not a hyena, good morning, Jerry. There's Dr.
Good
Corsi.
morning. Yeah. How's everybody today?
We're doing well, Jerry. We're just getting ready to get into the good stuff. I mentioned yesterday in the morning in this opening, we were going to have you on because you got everything right and you made some great calls. We're going to go through that today, and credit where credit's due. But one thing we can't give you credit for is JD Vance eviscerating Margaret. What's her name?
Margaret Brennan.
Brennan.
Margie B. That's
Is she
her rap
related to
name,
John
Margie
Brennan?
B.
Is this John Brennan's daughter? Is this John Brennan's daughter? They are very similar. They're very similar here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this whole mainstream media is losing their marbles over all this. Their heads are exploding. How about Jim Acosta gone after 18
We're just
years?
talking about Jimmy.
We're just talking
Yeah,
about that.
I knew him. I flew on Romney's plane in the presidential campaign in 2012. I got to know Acosta, and
I've met him. I've met him.
he's he's really not a bad guy, but he's far
Yeah.
left. He got into this far left mentality. I mean, it's a human being. He's a reasonably, sane guy, but
Yeah.
until you get into politics, and then he's just hard left. But
Jerry, I think I mentioned before you got on to the audience, I rode a train, one of the Amtrak trains in the Northeast Corridor. He rode in the seat behind me. I didn't really know how left he was until I saw him wearing a Stalin jacket. He had one of those high comrade jackets on the train. I thought that was a bit over the top, but what do I know?
Well, I knew him through the whole, that whole Obama period of time when Obama was running for his reelection, and the whole group of them on the, they used to, the New York Times, these were all very young guys and women, and they all would sit in the back of the bus and play gotcha games. Who wrote the best gotcha piece on Romney? You could ask the question that made him look foolish, or do something where they could embarrass Romney or his campaign. That's all they wanted to do. They weren't interested in reporting.
It was their job.
It was their job.
And again, the mentalities are very low when it comes to this sort of thing. Kids, young journalists back in the 80s and 90s were taught to be, or at least the late 80s, early 90s were taught to be activists. They were taught to push the narrative.
Well, it started in the Vietnam War,
influence,
actually. I mean,
yeah.
the Vietnam War, the journalism all went to becoming ideologically oriented.
Right. It's about influencing rather than reporting at this point.
Well,
Yeah.
So, Tony, what were the things you said I was right about? I'd be interested.
Well, I mean, about the algorithm, about the direction of
Yes.
the election, about the issues relating to making sure that we had sufficient coverage of all the states in question regarding watching what they do in real time, which
Yeah.
everybody did. So I think it was, clearly everything you talked about and brought up was accurate, and you guys were ahead of it. And I thought it was brilliant, and I think the Patriots all appreciate you and God's Five Stones efforts to stay ahead of it.
It's still going on. I mean, now there's a group working with the president to investigate various of the down ballot elections for House and Senate that were stolen by the algorithms. They did not use the algorithms during the presidential election. I think they would have been caught. And I also think that there was a decision made in the Democratic Party's become a communist party. and it's verging on becoming just a treasonous party. And there's several implications from that. One is I'm saying that, they did not use the algorithms because Biden actually outsmarted Obama when Obama came in with Pelosi and told Biden he wasn't going to run for president in 2024. Biden acknowledged that finally, and then about 20 minutes later, he posted an X endorsing Kamala Harris. So Obama was checkmated on putting in Michelle or Michael, whoever that person is. And by the way, it seems like now there's some truth to the breakup of Obama and Michelle. She wasn't at the inauguration. She wasn't at the funeral of Carter. And I still want to know about the gay cook who drowned with Obama's, the White House gay. It sure seems to me like a, lesbian or homosexual murder was involved here. This sounds like this whole thing
Jerry,
is a deal of a lover's spot.
Deal.
Yeah.
Paul Pelosi and David bring that back too. That's widespread with these people.
I mean, and people don't understand the evil nature, the hate or the anger that occurs when these homosexual and lesbian relationships go bad. I mean, heterosexual breakups are bad enough, but lesbian and homosexual breakups often become murderous. And the anger and the feelings and the intensity is just, there's another dimension to all the. It's not just, these two little puppies, these two little men or two little women love each other. Why don't we leave them alone? They're so sweet. That's not the nature of all these homosexual and lesbian relationships. There's other dimensions to it that people aren't willing to talk about.
Well, so Jerry, let me make a correction. I hate to correct you on air, but the reason the gay chef had to be drowned is because Obama didn't have a black Oldsmobile available to drive him off a bridge. That's got to be clear on that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're right. But the point is, we're investigating these things. God's Five Stone is still active, and there will be criminal prosecutions. The 2020 election, even Putin is now saying.
Oh, yeah, great. And he's right.
He's right. Well, that sure sounds like a signal to me that he was willing to get that information that Russia may have on the theft of the 2020 election. That may become public pretty soon. And it's going to become public within a reasonably short period of time, because these algorithms are clearly, I think, in every state, they are clearly designed to create false voters that get legitimate state IDs and can be voted as certifiable votes, even though the people don't exist. And so therefore, we're raising more money, and we're going to continue this effort to get to the bottom of, if we don't get these algorithms out of the state board of election voter registration databases, the Democrats will steal Congress in 2026. And so they're going to aim to take the House and the Senate and cripple Trump's agenda for the last 2 years of the second term. So it's critical that we continue this effort until we can make it clear to the public. I think the intelligence agencies have been running our elections. I think the Democrats have been in on stealing with these algorithms, and they were used in the down ballot elections in 2024. And a number of Democrats in the House and Senate need to be removed because they stole their seats. And that needs to be investigated. It's being investigated. And I think that's going to be another shock to the nation.
Yeah. Well, so let's go through that. So I do want to get back to Margaret Brenner, because John Brennan, is that John Brennan's daughter? Or what?
No,
I don't think so.
I looked. I had to look it up anyway, but she is not.
No, so she's his mistress. Is that what it is? She's got to be something. They got to be related because they're so slimy.
John Brennan has certainly, though, come unglued. I mean, he voted for Gus Hall when he was a young man who was the head of the Communist Party USA. And he's been a communist. And now, since he didn't get a pardon, he's extremely vulnerable for a treason charge, because he had a small group at the very beginning of I write about it in my book, Coup d'etat. He had a very small group meeting to promote the Russian collusion narrative within the CIA. It was a CIA operation in conjunction with the Counterintelligence Division of the Department of Justice, okay, which allowed them to do international espionage work with the Five Eyes. And that's how they promoted the Steele dossier with operatives like this Stephen Halper and others who were involved in trying to set up Papadopoulos and Carter Page. No, the whole
That
story
was,
was all a lie. It was all a complete
that
lie.
was the Pentagon. Those guys were involved in something.
Pentagon too.
At net assessment. No, these guys, they took net assessment as soon as Andy Marshall stepped down. Andy was the big brain looking over the horizon, and his big brain broke, and he couldn't see past next week. Just saying. Just sorry, Andy. And when he left, the left came in, took it over, and made it into an operative location for them to use and manipulate people overseas. That's the truth.
Well, and they had the cooperation of Brennan and the CIA. They had the cooperation of Clapper and the head of Defense Intelligence, the DIA, and Defense Intelligence Agency, and they were working in conjunction with the FBI and the DOJ's counterintelligence group, and it was an international operation. It was a sting operation. It was an entrapment to try to plant evidence about Russian collusion against Trump, which was entirely fabricated.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was a lie.
Well,
And it was a lot.
You guys said they went after George Papadopoulos. I'm really curious as to why they were so into going after the father on Webster for some reason. But that's another story for another day.
They love sitcoms, Chris. They love sitcoms.
And Burger King commercials. That's how
That's right.
Emmanuel Lewis got famous, by the way.
I can't believe it's not butter. Anyway, but back to the Jerry. We need to get to Margaret. But one thing before we get into that, Chris, let me say a couple things. So first off, Trump's pulled us out of the climate nonsense, Paris. I do recommend you get Jerry's book,
Yes.
The Truth About Global Warming. I talk about this all the time. This is a great, practical, common sense reference. You don't have to have a degree to understand why the left is using this. Just saying. He actually froze all federal grants, stopping our donations to the Soros-formed NGOs and PVOs. So that's good. He's now involved in removing illegal aliens. He's got people in charge of the Treasury who I think will be, less resistant to draining using taxation. I like the idea of an external revenue service and getting rid of the IRS. I think it's great because the IRS has become, as Trump knows, a tool of the deep state.
Exactly.
He talked about how he was constantly under audit. So why would you do that other than you don't like the guy? So
It was a weapon of the deep state. It was a weapon.
It is a weapon of the deep state. Absolutely.
Keep in mind,
it's a weapon of oppression.
and I want to just go back to that Paris Accord because I keep telling people don't realize this was never ever about climate change or anything like that. It was about redistribution of U.S. taxpayer wealth. $10 billion of hard-earned tax money per year. $10 billion would get kicked into this fund that nobody had any accountability for when it came to spending it. To put that into perspective, that is 1/10 of what Dr. Evil wanted when he held the world captive for $100 billion. But think about that. 10 years, that would have been Dr. Evil's ransom.
Yeah.
No joke. This is the truth. This is taxpayer waste.
Well, I think the deportation effort that started has been good, but it's going to have to be ramped up in a massive way. And I see Trump has now sent the military also to California to get water so they can fight fires. I mean, Governor Newsom needs to be explained that water is effective in putting out fires. It's a hard concept for the left to understand, especially when they want to burn out these areas that they want to use for other purposes. Palisades would be nice for high-rise 15-minute cities, high-rise buildings. And the Palisades wasn't about to rezone. The people weren't about to sell their properties. So I can burn them all down. Now, the key, I think, to an effective operation to deport, I'm going to write about this, is you're going to have an operation that involves a lot, not just of troops, but I think you can get, contractors involved in it to help the DHS effort, because they're, if we deport 1,000 and we are still letting 500 or 600 in a day through the border, the net is only 400 that were deported. And when you want to deport, start deporting 150,000 a year, you're going to have a big operation. So shut down the import. Nobody gets in at the border anymore for a while. Just shut it down completely till we get control of the situation.
But I got a question for you, because I do want to get to Margaret, because I want to talk about her dad, John Brennan. But hold on. But before I go, can we depict? So there's some people who I think we should get rid of. Who's that Latina on The View? Can we deport her? What's her name?
Oh, Anna Navarro.
Anna Navarro.
Anna
Can
Navarro.
she go back to Cuba or Nicaragua, wherever she came from?
Basically, yeah. I people think she talks like Rosie Perez, so we can't even understand her. Actually, she talks like Rosie Perez with marbles in her mouth. We can't understand her anyway. So yeah, deport her. We don't need her. Send her to Colombia. There we go.
Well, she's on the Rosie O'Donnell weight gain plan, by the way.
Well, just quit watching The View. Quit watching The View altogether.
Yeah, I don't know. Other than Joan Behar, like if you asked me who was on that show, I honestly have no idea. She would be the only one that I have any recognition for. The rest of them.
Well, there's that nutty Sonny Hostin.
Oh boy, I got some breaking news. Breaking news. Donald Trump
Costa join The View.
No, but Donald Trump did threaten Gustavo Petro one more time. The president of Colombia, he said, "All right, now take Anna Navarro, or else we're going to double the tariff we threatened." And Petro said, "We'll take the tariff."
Well, Trump is how about paying other countries to take our criminals? Let's deport our criminals. You want a few? We'll pay you to take them.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Jerry, I don't know. Have you ever watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes.
So there's a great episode you guys probably know where they come across this spaceship of all the middlemen and they can't figure out where they're going. It's like, oh, there was no disaster on our planet? Like, no. They got rid of all the middlemen and nutcases. So anyway, but let's go back to a nutcase we want to talk about, Margaret Brennan. Let's go. So let's talk about Margaret and JD Vance. So let's go, Chris. You ready for that?
Yes, I am. Now, Margaret Brennan.
Frankly, Margaret, I don't give a damn. So
now, when she goes to the Diddy parties as a rapper, she uses the name Margie B.
Ooh.
Different story, though. Here we go.
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people
it's
are
not
vetted.
good.
Okay, I want to show you, before we finish this, I want to show you that JD Vance is looking her right in the eye and giving her solid truths. I know she's looking at her notes, but even when she gets up to speak, she barely looks at Vance before looking back at her notes again. So this is not a matter of looking at her notes. She doesn't want to look at Vance and know that she's really either not lying or she was fed information that she's now not sure of.
Right.
More of this.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted. And many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted. And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret.
I don't want... great?
Yeah.
Like sneering and jackal face. Go back. Can you go back to the jackal face?
Scowl. Yeah, she looked like Governor Hochul.
Yeah, let's do the. That's not it. There's a little bit. It was like.
Oh yeah, it was a sneer in there. It's right here. Oh, it was right in there somewhere.
So I was.
There we go. So that's the Hochul face right there.
Yeah. So I watched this guy, this body language guy. He's great. And he's talking about how so much was revealed about her facial expressions and demeanor, about how she's not out to get the news. We know this. She's not out to get to know. She's out to demean the vice president. That's what she's trying
I
to
like
do.
how you froze her face right there. Like, that's the perfect expression. It really sums it up. There you go.
It's hateful. It's hateful and angry.
Yeah.
And
This is,
Yeah.
no, this is my viral moment, not yours.
Totally.
well, and also, I mean, the Democrats, the communists, support all the wrong ideas that don't work. Okay, every one of their ideas is broken. So, we want to depopulate, so let's attack hydrocarbon fuels. We want to kill people.
So let me hit that, Jerry, because Karyn, I want you to comment on this. So we talked about this in the show yesterday. So Jerry, they have turned the environment into their god.
That's
And
right.
Karyn, to you, one of the things we talked about yesterday is they believe, since they don't have a god, that the environment is their church and celebrities are their demigods. That's why they measured Kamala's success by how many celebrities, their version of a god, because they don't have one, how many they got to endure. Do you think that's true?
I believe in God, that in some ways you're demonic. No, I mean, it just goes back to like everything that we talk about on the basis of the loss of God and religion in this country and how this country has deteriorated. Just on that alone, take everything else out of the equation. The fact that, it's indoctrination. I actually saw this terrible video that I almost wanted to share with everybody, but then didn't share because I was so disturbed by it, which was put out by Prager University. And it was a video of these kids in Gaza and screaming about Americans in the West and Jews, and they're indoctrinated. Well, it's exactly the same thing in this country, maybe not as severe, but children today are growing up without the understanding that there is a higher power and there is a God that's looking out for them, that they have to have faith. Instead, they're taught to believe that Hollywood is the God, or the people that they see come across their feed on their phone is their God. And that really borderlines on being something that I think is demonic in its nature. And you go back to talking about these lesbian and homosexual relationships, Dr. Corsi, like part of me didn't want to engage in that conversation because it made me a little bit uncomfortable. But think about just in the simplest biological way, there's men and women, and men and women can create life and they can procreate because that's the way that God intended it. 2 men, 2 women, they can't do that. Something's wrong. And what does that then lead to? I'm not saying that being gay is something that's inherently bad and that I think you need to be saved by God necessarily.
That's not the issue. No,
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that, things that come from a place that isn't of a direct connection with God tend to not be good no matter where they were. And that conversation made me uncomfortable because it brought up that lack of spirituality for me again, that I think is so much the base and the root of a lot of the problems we have as a society, whether you're heterosexual, you're gay, or anything else. Once you lose that understanding of who we are and why we're here and that we're all products of God. And yes, God made men and women to have children, right?
I'm pretty sure that they're not products of God. They're products of Satan. I think,
that's
why.
And look, we're not supposed to say that the, homosexual and lesbian relationships are evil or wrong or, well, why not? I mean, I am.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm saying it.
It makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to say
Jerry,
that because I don't want to.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but the point is,
so Jerry,
I want to make
a question for you. Have you revised your thinking about Michelle Obama? Is she a guy?
Michelle Obama, I have no idea what she is.
I'm going with Joe Gilbert on this one.
I have no clue. Okay, but the point. Well, Joel may or may not be right. I mean,
I'm talking about the fact that when on your shows, and on this one, on your shows and this one, her first job, she was abroad apparently.
Yeah, I know.
Her first job was kicking.
Let me make the point I want to make, okay? Right. Which is that we're not supposed to say these things are wrong or evil or anything. First of all, people are going to commit sin and go to hell. Mm-hmm. Okay, so do I? Is it okay if they commit sin? Well, God gave them free will. Let them go ahead and do that if that's what they want to do. But do I have to say that their sin is acceptable or that it's okay with me? No, it's wrong. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, all these perversions, and I wrote a book called The Bad Samaritans. I said, the next thing after homosexuality and lesbianism would be transgenderism, which it is, and then pedophilia would have to be accepted. Mm-hmm. Then it's bestiality. Now, next, we're going to have necrophilia. That's got to be accepted. And why can't we have snuff sex crimes, which are really the epitome of a lot of the demonic ceremonies that go on in Hollywood?
I know what that is. What is
Well,
that?
Well,
snuff sex crimes are when you have a sexual orgy and somebody gets killed in the process of sex. They get tortured and killed, and it's sexually exciting. And they make films of it.
it's also known as a P. Diddy party.
Ah.
Yeah, I mean, look at the P. Diddy parties, all these things.
Ain't no
Engage
party
in-
like a P.
They
Diddy
engage
party.
in rape. They engage in all kinds of bizarre activities. And we're all supposed to say this is okay.
We're
Okay,
going to hear
well-
about all this. This is coming out when they get that list out and some other things. By
I
the way,
published a book called Silicon Satan with Craig Lund. It's a novel. And it goes through the whole thing of what really happens, including the rituals in which they kill and eat babies. They mine babies for these chemicals that babies
there she
produce.
is, getting all oiled up with P. Diddy.
Yeah,
So-
and so these things are going to have to come out as to what the reality of all
I know.
this is.
So Jerry, part of the problem is I think they a lot of these guys in their teens and 20s followed the Grateful Dead, and there's a song called I may be going to hell in a bucket, but I'm enjoying the ride, and they took that as a lifestyle choice, right, Chris?
I don't know. I do know I was at a concert from a Grateful Dead concert, and they ran out of pot. And about 6 or 7 people next to me were saying, "Damn, this music sucks."
What the
Ah, that's right.
Where would they run out of weed at a Grateful Dead concert? What town
right.
are you in? I need more information.
They were looking
It's like
for
the big-
weed-flavored Ben and Jerry's.
That's right. It's like the beginning of Super Troopers.
Crazy.
Littering and
Well,
smoking the ganja.
the drugs and the combination of the drugs and the sex and all of these things go together. And so, what they don't show you in the gay parades is the nearly naked guys doing sacrilegious homosexual
I know.
acts with somebody
Well,
on
they
a
won't-
cross
they
looking
won't
like they're being
publish that stuff.
crucified.
It's happened
They won't
all the
publish
time.
that stuff.
Oh, unless it's at the Olympics.
Or how about the whips and the chains? We don't get to see those in the homosexual parades either.
No, well, Michelle
I didn't-
Obama doesn't want a picture taken.
Yeah, well, I mean, the dark side of these things is going to have to be understood and explained. Okay, and
So,
people.
all right, so let me ask you that, Jerry.
There's always been a small percentage of the population that's engaged in these things, but if we're going to have to celebrate them, we're going to have to accept them as normal and real, not talk about them.
Right.
I'm
No,
sorry, I'm
but
not
Jerry,
going
one
there.
of one of the things you and I've talked about privately up at Tony Elise's place
Right.
is the fact
Uh-huh.
that so many of the current leaders have been essentially caught on tape
Yes.
doing bad things. They are wards of the deep state. Is that a polite way of saying it? That
Yeah,
they've
I
been
mean,
essentially-
since Lyndon Johnson and Billy Saul Estes, they've been having congressional sex orgy drug parties in which everybody's been filmed. Okay,
Yeah.
and then they're blackmailable. And then you add on that Mitch McConnell waddling across the aisle when he votes against Hegseth. I think these people need to be recalled. So I don't want to wait to have to primary them. I want to recall them. Let's recall McConnell. Let's recall Murkowski. Let's recall.
Wow, this is
We can't
terrible.
have
Do
the
we
Trump
have
stuff
to
here.
talk about these people though and sex in the same sentence? Because that also
Well, that is kind of nasty. if
It's
you
all
think
part
about
of the
it.
reality.
it's disturbing. It's
hey.
unfortunate, but I think this is why everybody needs to go to bed at 8:30.
Well,
Things
it
happen
may
at
be
night.
disturbing, but it's reality. Until we talk
Yeah.
about the truth, we're not going to end it. And the fact is, the Silicon Satan, I guarantee, is a very difficult book to read, but it's true. Greg Lund experienced it, and it's fact what they do.
Jerry,
Okay, now
is that about Jerry Brown and how he had a silicon doll wife? No, I guess
that's
man.
another whole topic.
Story.
Another whole
Oh,
topic.
yeah, that might be something different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so different, but another whole topic. But the point is this subculture in Hollywood, Washington, and Silicon Valley is demonic. And the behaviors it exhibits are demonic. And starting in the 70s, there was a public relations campaign that was run by the homosexuals to decide they were going to try to normalize all this and to make it acceptable. Okay, so that we would be politically incorrect to really describe the true nature of it.
Right.
Okay, now again, as I've said, there's always been a small percentage of population which is going to do bizarre things of one kind or another. But we don't have to normalize it. That's what when I wrote the book on this neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy, I said basically what we're doing is we're making schizophrenia the norm. In other words, whatever bizarre idea you've got of who you are or how you want to behave, we've all got to accept and celebrate as normal.
Well, so I want to ask you both, Karyn first, and then you, Jerry. Karyn, yesterday, Pete Hegseth received guidance from President Trump to review all policies relating to manpower. That is to say, who can serve in the military. One of those groups is considered protected by the left, and that's transgenders. And I can tell you, let me just cut to the chase. I know what's coming. Transgenders are going to be deplatformed from the military. That they cannot serve. So how do you feel about that? And then I'll talk to Jerry.
I think that's absolutely, I think that there's a mental illness component to all of this. And what, mental illness is real. And I'm not saying, we all probably have some level of mental illness, okay? We all have things that we need to be self-aware of and address about ourselves in the way that we think. I mean, I'm very open to therapy. I'm very open to, discovering what makes people tick and psychology in general, but you can't say that thinking that you are a gender that you clearly biologically are not is not part of a mental illness. And you're fit maybe to go do other things. Go be a fashion designer, okay? Go do things that fit into the realm of your wheelhouse and how you're supposed to live your life. You're probably not supposed to be a commander in the military, honestly.
One of the arguments they make, I know, one of the arguments they make against us, which I don't buy into, just saying, but they say, well, we want to serve the nation. To your point, it's like, go join the climate, which I think is going away too.
The wardrobe for the Army's theatrical performances. I'm sure there's a job that we can find. There are other things.
Yeah, they could be seconds in the next performance of
I don't know what the job
exactly.
is.
They can join
next performance is Springtime for Hitler. They can be prancing around as the seconds. That's okay.
That's a hey.
Jerry. They can join the KKK division of the FBI.
They can sing the Ramones classic. The KKK took my baby away.
So do you, Jerry? Jerry,
I'm talking about like if RuPaul wasn't RuPaul of RuPaul's Drag Race. And you were telling me that RuPaul was going to be running, some organization for the American military. We'd all realize how ridiculous this is because you've seen this character. No,
I'm drawing the line at RuPaul.
No, I'm totally for them stopping this.
I got to draw the line at RuPaul, and this is why. RuPaul, he's one ugly ass dude, so that's why he has to dress up as a broad.
How about admirals in dresses and lipstick? I mean,
you can't have any of it. It has to go away. This nonsense has to stop, Tony. That is my final answer. It has to stop.
Well, I think guys jumping on airplanes wearing pumps is a good idea. I think we should at least preserve it.
And how about this? All right, if we're on this same subject with these the mentally ill and the trans agenda here, let's also not have a future president appoint a morbidly obese trans as an assistant or as the second in command to the health department. Okay? This is absolutely awful.
Admiral Levine.
Setting an example, right? At one time, leadership was about setting an example.
Right.
If we could all go back to that.
But Karyn, Karyn, you're missing the point. That is their example. As Jerry will tell you. They want to
normalize this. It's a normalization
They
movement.
want to diminish and weaken
the
very
it's clearly not working.
It's a whole grooming. It's a whole groom. You don't have to groom something that's normal.
Now you bring up an interesting point about normalization, Jerry. Think about this. In 2016, during the Donald Trump campaign, Jimmy Fallon, after Trump won the election, was accused of normalizing Donald Trump. The idea was you can't have somebody from the outside moving in to run for political office, especially if it's somebody that's despised or somebody that knows things that have happened in the background. But the normalization is the word. You're right, Dr. Corsi. This normalization movement, the idea, they sneaking through entertainment venues
and celebrating, normalizing and celebrating.
Normalization first, then celebration second, right?
Yeah, and then demanding that everybody participate. That's the next stage.
And the opposite of that was everything they don't like and they hate in this world from the left. They don't want to normalize. They want to denormalize. And
Yeah,
that's
everything
why
else is
the idea of
censored.
conservative thought. They
Yeah.
want to denormalize conservative thought.
That's right. They
But-
want to
but
demonize
the-
conservative thought. They want
well,
to.
again, and part of this
And
has
that's what
been
you
through
saw in that
all-
interview with Vance. Is that woman was about demonic, and she was accused.
Oh, yeah.
The evil comes out of them when they can't stand ideas that have anything to
Right.
do with God or justice or true right. Their ideas are perverted and don't work to begin with.
So I want to hit that, Jerry. I want to go back. We haven't played the Margaret, I don't give a damn line. Hold on. Do that in a second, Chris. But Jerry, to your point, we've been assailed by the left with woke. This is why Disney went woke. We had all Lionsgate, all the different big production houses have been trying to force feed us this normalization of abominations. Is that
Right. That's right. And they don't work. Okay. Two
don't
men
work.
having sex, they're not going to produce a baby. I'm sorry.
Right?
They're not-
Exactly.
no.
Basic stuff.
Fundamental. So in other words, the normalization of homosexuality and lesbianism is fundamentally a death cult. Okay. So we all
you were
you
so
don't
right about this.
reproduce the race.
Two men can't produce a baby, but two lesbians could produce a lot of cats.
Yeah, well, that remains
That's
to be
a fact.
seen. That remains to
All
be
right.
seen.
All right,
know.
Chris, do the punchline here. Can you bring up
That's
Mark?
right. I have to do the punchline because this is where J.D. Vance does his best
There it
Humphrey
is.
Bogart.
God
That's right. Here we go.
was living
I
here.
don't really
But-
care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree.
I
with
don't really care, Margaret.
And one man
There
Oh,
you go.
I was in there somewhere, but yeah, he doesn't care. It doesn't matter. And that's the whole thing. This woman was trying as hard as she could to debate debate the vice president, which in some cases is fine, but a journalist should be asking questions, getting the answers, and then vetting them or verifying them afterward. That's
Sure.
that's full
Easy.
journalism. Now it's about making the news. Now it's about trying
Yeah.
to.
Well, she just
influence-
wanted to demonize him to make him look evil because
Right.
he wouldn't let these poor Afghanis come into the country.
Margaret,
You know,
Margaret's
okay,
like
so-
she's the anti Catherine Herridge. Like Catherine's cool. This woman is evil. She's like
Yeah.
right.
So you get into Great Britain now, and so some woman or girl is raped, and if you say it was a Muslim who did it, the Muslim ought to be criminalized and prosecuted. You go to prison. Okay, so therefore you give license to this kind of behavior, and pretty soon the demons are running the country. You know,
Yeah.
and
Now keep in
and-
mind, this isn't the first time that Margaret Brennan
you're
was
talking about
beaten
it in
down
that
by
context,
Vance.
and I'm saying to myself, that's what happened the last 4 years, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
what
mean,
happened here, Chris. I know I'm taking the words out of your mouth.
and you can't once you get into they're fundamentally language perversions. They're fundamentally perversions of what works. You know, I mean, there's value subjectivity which these people engage in. Anything your value judgment's as good as my value judgment. Yeah, well, you know, if you think you can jump off a building and fly, go ahead, and I encourage you to try it.
right.
Because at least you eliminate yourself when there's one fewer nutcase around.
Well, there you go. So hold on that thought. So Karen, I have a little riddle. I have a multiple choice question for you. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. Who could swim further out to sea? A. John Brennan. Oh no. Who could swim further out to sea without drowning? A. John Brennan. B. Margaret Brennan. Or C. I don't know, but it's worth trying.
I don't know what it's worth trying. I'm going to go with that.
There you go. That's right. One of them will drown. To Jerry's point.
Yeah, well, they're going to drown.
I have an
And-
answer. It's going to be the
And
first
so
one.
so do chefs
Like
or
the chef.
paddleboarding.
They're going to be
in
gone
very-
like the
in-
chef
in-
who
Right,
drowned
chefs,
in
yeah,
paddleboard.
in a
paddleboard.
water where you can stand up. You know,
Margaret-
that's a bad idea. He's going to drown.
Margaret Brennan would not. She would be the one to fail because she would swim halfway over, look at the distance, and say, "I am damn well sure that I'm never going to make it," and then swim back.
No, she'd say, "Well, I know I could make it. Why
See,
bother trying?" You know,
Get it halfway and swim back.
Look,
Right.
the problem that, and this would go back to the Silicon Satan book. Yes, it's hard to read. Yeah, people are going to be disturbed by it. But if we don't
Well-
deal what's going on, how are we going to address the problem and solve the
Well,
problem?
Jerry, I don't know if you've read the last line, but we did a similar thing with the Southwest border. We talked about the brutality and other things going on down
Yes.
here. There's a scene I wrote in that where we had gotten some intel on some of the brutality of the torturing going on, and we put that in the book. And the publisher got upset with me. It's like, why are you doing this? It's like, this is based on real reports. I got a call. I was on Capitol Hill, the Rayburn building, and I got a call from the publisher, and they said, "Hey, we're not sure if we can do your book." It's like, well, why? It's like, well, you're doing over the top violence. Like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean,
I can point to you reports that show how people are being tortured at the Southwest border.
well, and again, when you describe these things, okay, so I had discussions with Greg Lund saying, look, you're not writing pornography. You're talking about a demonic activity that's happening. It's not meant to titillate. It's meant to shock. And it's meant to, the getting children into sex, period, is a part of normalizing and grooming an activity where these kids have no idea what they're doing. But it's preparing them to compromise all kinds of other values later in life because they're not going through a normal development curve. They're not allowed to mature into puberty. They're not allowed to go through childhood. They're immediately taken and their innocence is lost.
So do you think Selena Gomez is one of them? Because she acted like that today.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
I have no idea, and I don't care. If she wants, to be insane. If she wants to be insane and go to hell, let her go to hell. I don't care. That's her choice.
Well, she does work for Disney, or did. So
well, there you go.
And Satan wants to harvest a whole bunch of them. It's okay with me. They can all go to hell for all I care, and they'll be happy there. So that's what they want.
That's the Grateful Dead song. I may be going to hell in a bucket, but apparently I'm enjoying the ride. So there you go. And that's what it's a great video
when
too.
They get there, they go to Chris, where Chris was.
There's also the Rolling Stones song about a man of taste and distinction.
Well, that was Definitely for the Devil. That's what it was called. That's right.
Exactly.
I will say the Leibach version was much better. But that's
okay. But I mean, this whole normalizing of Satan, this whole trying to make it chic, to try to make evil chic. This is again,
evil's evil.
Evil's evil.
Period.
And it doesn't work. It's destructive. Okay. Yep. To depopulate the world is a bad idea. Okay. If we're getting rid of carbon dioxide, you get rid of enough carbon dioxide, everything dies. Everything dies. You have to have a certain amount of carbon dioxide to sustain life. Photosynthesis.
Hey, Jared, do you think we could encourage Roger Moore to eat the left? I mean, I'm sure he's got a big appetite. And if he wants to depopulate, he could do both. He could depopulate and create like a new genome for us to live in without the left. I think it'd be
these rituals.
It could be like a remake of the Blob. Remember the movie The Blob? He could be like the star of Blob 3.
Well, look, all these sexual perversions, all these demonic rituals are not new. You go back into ancient paganism; they're all there too. And the point is, I always have thought that, wondered why, under Constantine, the Roman Empire went Christian. I think finally the mothers got tired of seeing their children made into sexual perverts.
There you go.
They didn't get these children born. So Christ comes along and he talks about family, talks about raising children, and the mothers say, "Hey, I'm listening to this guy. This guy's got a lot more to say that appeals to me than listening to Nero, fiddling while Rome burns." It doesn't work. These things are bad ideas. So again, eventually, we pursue these bad ideas. I want to take my boat out and I want to see the fish, so I cut a hole in the bottom of the boat. Well, you're going to sink. So these ideas don't work. They're dysfunctional, and the left prides itself on ideas that don't work. Yeah. Let's open the borders so we can create chaos. Let's let in 30,000 Afghanistan refugees, these poor Afghanistans who are just looking for a home. Yeah, well, really?
Well, but let me ask you two questions. First to Karyn. So Karyn, what Jerry just said makes, we've talked about this before I joined the team. You and Ed talked about this whole issue of the left media lying. But do you think now that we have people like J.D. Vance, it's going to be easier to discern the Margaret Brennans and their nonsense? Because that wasn't an interview. That was an attack on J.D.
It was. And I think that the entire tide has turned. And interestingly enough, this morning, we have a bunch of TVs in this house. I'm in Oklahoma right now. And one of the TVs that was on a local station wasn't playing their normal syndicated morning show that they always play. It's Good Morning America or one of these shows, because they've given it up. They're no longer buying that syndicated show. They're now producing their own national news segment here locally and airing it during that hour. That, in my opinion, was the death of traditional media. You've got a local news station that's no longer buying the big box show. So I do think that there's going to be a major shift here in the media and in America in general, because we have all new leadership. And what, for the first time in a long time, it's leadership like J.D. Vance that we can look up to, like Donald Trump. Right. But not only Donald Trump, because he was a man alone on an island. We've now got wonderful people around him. So I'm optimistic for the future of America, Tony. That's so
it's going to be a major shift, not an atom shift. That's a good observation.
And I think you're seeing with Donald Trump, and look, in 10 days he's done more than has been done in the country since Bill Clinton was inaugurated, and destroying the country. And so you've got a lot of truth being told, and it's being told straight. Okay, so he says we're going to freeze all these federal supplement payments, including food stamps, whatever they call that program today, and all these other programs that are just giving away trillions of dollars. Right. By the way, how many billions of dollars or trillions can't we account for in the federal budget? Because when you're just printing money and stealing it, and the people stealing it aren't sending it to Ukraine.
Money laundering.
Money laundering. It's just money laundering. We've learned how to print money, ship it to Ukraine, steal it through Cyprus, funnel it back in through the Bidens and the Central Intelligence Agency, run the drug business down on the border and the sex trade. Thank you very much, CIA, in conjunction with the major banks like TD Bank, which has got fined $3 billion for cooperating with the drug cartels, and HSBC was similar. Yep. The corruption is rampant, and we're not going to get rid of the corruption by being polite to it.
No, I know. So we got to go because we're over. But Jerry, one last question, and Karyn, I want you to chime in on this too before we go. So the first Trump term. Now we're going to investigate 2020. We all have stakes in that, Jerry. As you know, I did the whole pallet of ballot investigation, and our friends at Rasmussen's on top of that right now too. I don't know if you know, but
I've been watching Rasmussen. They're on fire over the issue too.
Man, oh man, he's great. He's great. Yeah, he's a friend of the show. So, but my question to you: do you think Trump tried it the easy way? It's like, hey, let's cooperate and get this done, and he found out that nobody wants to cooperate. Is that why he's going to be so demonstrative and just like no more Mr. Nice Guy? We're just going to do it now. Do you think?
I think in the first term he didn't. He had no idea he'd never really been in Washington. Okay, right. And if you've been in Washington any length of time, the only operative rule is no matter who's talking to you, you got to assume they're lying. The only question is, what do they want? Why are they lying? As Harry Truman was right, in Washington, if you want a friend, buy a dog. It's the only one you can trust. And so if you don't assume it that way, you don't assume everybody's wanting
unless you have Commander who bites people. That's a difference.
That's right. Okay, well, but Trump, I think, has learned how to have his own people in who are loyal to him. He's learned how to take executive action and make things happen. He's not caring if he wins the approval of Mitch McConnell or anyone else, and he's going after these people.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get, as I say, my solution to the federal government has always been move the entire bureaucracy to Death Valley.
Oh yeah.
Let them have Quonset huts. Give them all the solar panels they want, all the wind turbines they want. No, don't plague the country with them. Don't plague the country with them. They're all in Death Valley in a little concentrated compound.
South Dakota.
No, I don't want to wreck. I don't want to wreck anything. Let's not wreck anything.
Also known as Canada.
Leave Oklahoma.
Let's not wreck anything somebody might want to live in.
So, Karyn, the same question to you. Do you think that because Trump's coming in now, he's going to take out Collins and what's her name in Alaska? Get rid of those.
Murkowski.
I think things are going to work themselves out. I think a
lot of
this stuff is going to work itself out. We're 10 days in, guys, and look how much has been accomplished. I feel very optimistic if we can accomplish what we've accomplished in 10 days, that we have another 3 and more than 3/4 years left to go ahead and really make major changes in this country. I'm excited about it. And I do think Dr. Corsi made such a great point that he learned the first time he was there for 4 years, and he learned that he was picking bad people and that he was trusting the wrong people. And I hope to God This time he's on a much better trajectory. And looking at who he has around him, shout out again, Caroline Levitt's press conference today, J.D. Vance, I could go on and on, Pete Hegseth. I mean, look at these people. We have a superstar crew, and we're ready to take back this country. Let's do it.
But the only theme I'm on, the theme I'm on right now is let's not do a half job and claim a victory. In other words, let's not deport 1,000 people and we're letting 600 in and say we've accomplished anything. If we want to deport 150,000 or 1 million, it's going to take a different operation. And I don't want to see us settle for half measures that don't really accomplish the goal. That's why I'm saying it's not good enough to just get rid of the people who were in this special counsel Jack Smith's group that went after Trump. I want to get rid of the entire Department of Justice and start over, or we don't need a Department of Justice.
So we got to go. But Jerry, one last question, and I don't want to have you answer this and get in trouble, but is it true that Tom Homan's about to deport Barack Obama back? I'm just asking. I don't know these things.
Well, the birth certificate was Arpaio showed. We found the one from which his birth certificate was copied, and that's been validated by forensic examination. So I don't know where he was born.
I think he's a bottle baby. I think he's like an alien from the X-Files. You know, they have the human alien.
I've always been betting on Indonesia as his birth or origin. I think
probably.
I don't think he's African.
I think it's Roswell. I think he's a little green man that got around.
Could be. Could be.
Well, we don't have an alien birth certificate, so I don't know where he's from.
Well, we're waiting for the full review of all that stuff. But anyway, we got to go. We're over
born
time.
in East LA.
He's born in East LA.
Fun
All right. So Karyn, thank you for being here as always. People, everybody obviously loves you, and thank you for wake
them.
up.
I'll see everybody next Tuesday.
Jesus, yes. And then Jerry, always a great to have you on. We appreciate your telling the truth. And boy, oh boy. Well, by the way, folks, remember Jerry almost went to jail because they were trying to put him in, and he refused by telling the truth, and the truth set him free. Right, Jerry?
That's right. I would not take their plea deal. They never indicted me. Said they closed down the Mueller investigation. They were the criminals. They were the liars. I knew it.
And Chris hasn't been indicted either. Thank you, Chris, for
not yet. I'm pretty sure. You know, it all depends on if I'm. As long as I keep walking around with those big checks in my hand, saying you're a winner. We're in good shape. Hey-o.
So we are going to do that sometime. I've got the Karnak hat.
We have to. We've got to write these things down.
We'll have to find where we can get Funk and Wagnall to put envelopes in a jar for us, mason jar, and put it on
I'll
there.
have the envelopes on this side.
Yeah.
No, you'll have I'll have to figure that one out. I guess
you'll have to send them to me. Send me the envelopes from Funk and Wagnall's porch. So we'll figure it out. It'll be fun.
Perfect.
So we'll have a special visitor, a mystic visitor from the east, right?
Yeah. Got it.
Those were great, Johnny Carson.
Borderline divine powers. That's right. So
they were terrific.
That would be fun. All right, we got to go. Good. Thank you all for being here.
Guys.
We'll be back another day tomorrow. Until then, have fun watching Trump stir trouble up.